Now I've run out there in the void. Phoebe Rizzo's back, and been procrastinating again, so here I am later than I wanted to be. But, onward we go. Still just trying to press through this collection, and since I'm kind of getting into the home stretch, I'm starting to try to push forward a little bit, and got through a couple more of them. So, next on this list is another movie I have seen before. There's a few on this one that have already existed in my collection, so at least being able to rewatch some of these after so long a period has really been interesting, because I've noticed something with preconceptions of movies that can really shift once you know what you're getting into. And the movie I'm talking about on this one is one such. Dementia 13. Directed by Francis Ford Coppola, of all people. And I think his first, if not one of his first, directing stints as a director. Now, this movie, it's on a lot of collections. It's pretty easy to come by a copy of Dementia 13. And I first saw it probably more than 10 years ago. So, my memory of exactly what it was about had faded to a degree. When I first saw it, I didn't actually care for it that much. But that was, like I said, 10 plus years ago, a long time ago. And it kind of talked up, and it's one of those movies that people in this genre reference fairly regularly, and it kind of holds places in prominence in a lot of people's collection. So when I jumped in, I was expecting something, I guess, different than what it was, and therefore I didn't care for it as much. I was expecting something, I think, a little more over the top, rather than just weird and slightly off-putting. This one was 1963, and having rewatched it, I actually liked it a little bit more than I remembered the first time, particularly for just how strange everybody is, and also weird shifts of focus that I didn't really pick up on the first time around. So, what's the movie about? Now, that's a hard thing to sum up for Dementia 13. It revolves around a family gathering at their ancestral castle in Ireland to pretty much pay homage to the departed younger sister of the clan, I guess, and who drowned under somewhat mysterious circumstances several years ago. I can't remember now off the top of my head, but every year on the anniversary, they pretty much reenact the funeral. And just before the ritual during this one, they did a reading of the will, and turns out the mother, the matriarch of the family, is pretty much just donating all her money to charities in honor of said departed daughter, and so most of the kids aren't getting anything. Now, when the film starts, it's following a character named Louise, and she just married into the family some time ago. Now, she seems to be the main character, at least at the beginning. She's out on a boat with her husband on the lake after an awkward family dinner where she found out that they're not inheriting anything and they kind of need the money. They go on a late, and he dies of a heart attack. Yeah, this movie is pretty quick to jump to things. So, rather than doing anything sensible, she throws the body overboard and pretends he was called away, while she's determined to get the will changed so she gets some money. Well, that's all well and good. And then but something strange starts happening. And she gets it in her head to try to send a message from dear departed, is it Catherine, I think? It doesn't conveniently say on here, but the little dead girl, she tries to send a message from her to change the will and get herself some favor. So she tries to encourage the mother to look for a sign, and starts getting closer to the mother at this time. But that's when the bodies start piling up, as many of them start disappearing, or just dying outright. Family doctor gets called in to examine what's going on, which he was a weird character. At first, I didn't like him at all. He's pushy. He starts claiming to making orders of people despite just being the physician, but he's acting like he's a part of the family with a lot of authority. That said, he does help get to the bottom of things for what's going wrong, but he was kind of off-putting. And that actually describes a lot of characters of this. Most of them are subtly off-putting in some way. But that just kind of adds to the atmosphere of the movie rather than detract. And I will say, despite Louise being what appears to be our main character for the first chunk of the movie, she's actually one of the first people that just gets offed. Right after seeing what appears to be the body of the young girl. So, why is the body appearing? Who's the killer? It could be any of them. And so the mystery kicks into high gear as people start turning up dead, and what's actually going on and why starts spiraling out of control. It's a weird movie, and like I said, a lot of the characters are fairly off-putting, but the ones that are supposed to be likable, like another girl that's just about to marry into the family named Kane, she's adds a bit of life to it and a splash of normalcy amongst a otherwise subtly off-putting group. The violence for the time is a bit over the top for back then. Nowadays, it's nothing, but for the time I can see why this movie would be considered a bit shocking. Overall, I have a much better opinion of it than I did when I first watched it. I'm going to give this one a nice 3 MacGuffins. It's definitely worth seeing, or at least once, but just try to go in with either no expectations or not expecting something too over the top by today's standards. It's a slow burn mystery more than an outright horror film. And that's, I mean, there's definitely horror elements, particularly with the condition of the bodies and some of these what seem to be supernatural elements, but it's definitely more mystery genre for what I put it in, since it is trying to figure out who done it. But it's an enjoyable movie. I do recommend giving it a shot. Have a good night.